Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do see that we are live streaming and recording, and you may begin your meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that we do indeed have quorum for the meeting, so I will call this meeting of November 13th to order. And as usual, we'll begin with the reading of the land acknowledgement. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional land of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of the Indigenous people. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to the agenda. Sorry, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, and it's seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the November 15, 2021 regular meeting of Council be adopted as circulated. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any amendments?
Any amendments by any council members on the agenda that we have before us? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Then this vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to the disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Okay, after viewing the agenda, is there any council member that has a pecuniary interest to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have so noted. That does bring us to item 4 of the agenda, which is the COVID-19 pandemic update. And your first update is from Chief Limburner.
Chief Limburner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors, and senior leadership team. Just a quick update. So as of today, Pelham is at a total case count of 669 cases. We currently have 4 active. The Niagara region, we have a total case count of 18,579, 18 new cases today, 268 active, 17,872 resolved, and 439 fatalities. Our largest group of unvaccinated persons are 20 to 39-year-olds. It's pretty consistent across the country. Ontario cases, 607,725, 552 new cases today, 592,803 have been resolved, and 9,937 fatalities. Our hospital admissions, 138. Our ICU has 141 cases, and ICU and ventilators is at 79. That's the one good note that we have is our hospital systems are not overly taxed at this point. Across the country, 1,748,897 total cases. Of those, 1,694,827 are resolved, with 29,338 fatalities. Niagara Region's case doubling time is 444 days. Our reproduction rate's at 1.1. Our positivity rate's at 3.6. Variants of concern haven't changed from the last time I reported, with the exception of the Delta variant. They've detected 253 cases. Our infection spread is very consistent. The number one contributor is close contact with a confirmed case at 65.6%. Our Niagara Health people are currently working with 13 active outbreaks. They have resolved 503. As far as vaccinations go, Niagara region, we have 2.89% with first dose, 74.9% with second dose. The province is 3% first dose, 86% second dose, and across the country, 3.55% first dose, and 75.95% second dose. So we're pretty consistent with the country, but as far as the province go, we're quite a bit behind in our numbers. Provincial indicators are all in red, with the exception of our hospital admissions remaining green, which is a good sign. And just starting recently, the province has now started administering third shot boosters to a number of people, seniors and first responders and so forth. And that's the end of my report. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from councillors on the Chief's report? Not seeing any. If I just one comment, Chief, I think we can assume, or at least we like to assume, that the effectiveness of the vaccines, we knew that people could still get the COVID, but the vaccines were indeed supposed to keep us out of the hospitals, or definitely out of the ICUs. So even though our numbers are going up somewhat dramatically, maybe that's too strong a word, it is nice to see that our hospitalizations continue to remain low. Would you agree with that assessment?
True, and there is some people believe that getting the vaccine prevents you from getting COVID. It doesn't prevent you from getting infected. What it does is it reduces your ability to contract it. It reduces your ability to give it to someone else. And if you unfortunately do get the infection, then your symptoms are far less, and the likelihood of you being hospitalized is very unlikely unless you have underlying problems. But if you're a relatively healthy person and live a healthy life and you contract COVID, it's mainly just a minor cold symptoms, and it's more of an inconvenience than anything.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. And let's hope the hospitalization numbers continue to remain where they are. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from B. Limburner, Fire Chief and Community Management Coordinator for information. Unless there's any further discussion, this vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next COVID-19 presentation from Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Cribbs.
Thank you. And Mr. Cribbs, you have the floor.
No significant report this evening, Council, other than to say we are asking to meet with the province at the Roma conference in seeking additional compensation for the vaccination clinics that we have been running. I can tell you that at this point in time, our data indicates that in conjunction with public health, of course, that more than 73,000 people have been inoculated, vaccinated at the MCC, which is pretty spectacular given there are only 18,000 or so people in town. So we're punching 4.5 times above our weight, which has been a wonderful success story. And of course, we're looking to continue that on, but we are looking for a little help from province, and we've just put the finishing touches on that request. So with any luck, that will go forward. And that's what I have that's COVID related.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CAO. Any comments or questions to the CAO from any member of council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from D. Cribbs, Chief Administrative Officer, for information. And this vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda, and that is the minutes. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted and printed, circulated as read 1. Special Council 17/2021, Special Council Meeting November 1st, 2021, and RC 18/2021, Regular Council Meeting November 1st, 2021. Mr. Mayor, I ask you to call for errors and omissions.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. On these minutes outlined by the clerk, is there any errors or omission that a councillor would like to point out? And I see Councillor Wink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the regular council meeting minutes, 10.1.1, where I voiced, it says, I voiced the committee's desire to have the top coat of paving to be completed on Port Robinson Road. I believe there was a misunderstanding or inaccurate reporting with respect to that. Committee was fully aware that that the top coat of the paving for Port Robinson Road wouldn't be done until all the subdivisions are completed. So it would be a few years before that would happen. What we were suggesting is that lines be painted on Port Robinson Road at this point in time, along with the bike lanes, thus helping perhaps some of the traffic calming measures and reducing traffic speed on Port Robinson Road.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I apologize to Councillor Wink for that error on my part. So I'm writing down the note here that it was with respect to painting on the roads, including bike lanes and traffic measures, and I can make that amendment.
Thank you.
So then this would be with the minutes, with that set of minutes from the regular council as amended. Are there any other errors or omissions, Mr. Mayor?
I do not see any other hands up, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So with that amendment, I would begin this vote with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. And that does bring us to item 7, which is for the consent agenda to lift items. As council is aware, you are able to lift an item from the agenda if you wish to amend the resolution attached thereto. If you simply wish to speak to an item, you can do that at the consent agenda. I ask you, Mr. Mayor, if any members of council wish to lift any items on the agenda.
Okay, is there any items that I see we have a few hands? We'll go to Councillor Hildebrand first.
Item 8.5.1.
Thank you. That's 8.5.1, and that's the City of Welland resolution.
Okay, and Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, 8.3.4, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's 8.3.4, and that's the Unflood Ontario. Were there any other
That's
items?
correct.
Yes, I believe Councillor Wink had his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Like to lift 8.3.5, please.
Thank you, and that's the update on the Pelham Street North report.
Okay, thank you. Any other items to be lifted by council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have noted the 3 items, and therefore we have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the November 15, 2021 council agenda be received and the recommendations therein be contained, save and accept item 8.5.1, 8.3.4, and 8.3.5, which will be dealt with separately. Mr. Mayor, this would be the time for council to discuss the items on the consent agenda, and we are doing that by category now. So the first category would be staff reports for information or action, and this would be with respect to any staff reports that have not been lifted.
Okay. Any comment on the staff reports of a routine nature for information or action? That's one, right, Madam Clerk? 8.3?
Correct.
Yes. And I don't see any hands on that one.
The next is the action correspondence.
And action correspondence. Action correspondence, let me see. Anyone want to lift any items on that? And I don't see any hands on that, Madam Clerk.
And then it's the committee minutes for information.
Okay. Committee minutes, and yes, there we go. Okay, Councillor Hildebrand.
8.7.2.
Okay.
If it's just to make comment, you're certainly welcome
Yes.
to speak to that.
Yes, it's just to make comment.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor.
On new business on the minutes, it talks about an action by the JAC committee, and it talks about the report that the circulated a letter about the app being inaccessible. And Jack attended the meeting with NRT and is taking over everyone's township and be merged in one system. Stefan attended and was not well received. A human rights complaint was filed against the NRT due to the inaccessibility. And it went on to say the motion they raised was be it resolved that the letter be presented by Stephen and Andrea, once approved by Jack, and the letter be sent to the CAO and mayors of 12 municipalities, as well as Niagara Regional Transit. We are also sent copies to the chairs of the other municipalities for their awareness. That seems like a very serious complaint, considering what Jack stands for. Does anyone have any information with regards to that complaint?
Let's try Mr. CAO.
I can give you a bare bones answer, but Madam Clerk has actually made the inquiries on behalf of the corporation, and she does have daily administrative responsibility for the subject area. So actually, perhaps we'll just defer the whole matter to her.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The councillor is correct. That was in the minutes. I have reached out to the town of Pelham's consultant with respect to Jack, and I have spoken with her. I understand that, yes, an individual has filed a complaint against the NRT. This is an individual complaint. It's not a complaint made from Jack as a whole. They have drafted correspondence, which they do plan to send in the coming weeks to all area municipalities, mayors and CAOs. Once I've received that formal correspondence, I will be placing that correspondence on the consent agenda for council to receive and review, and if so desired, support and endorse Jack's request, which would be their ultimate request is they would like to be consulted in the transit review and of the app. So that will be coming to council in near future.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hildebrand. I have one question also on the 8.71 Pelham Library Board minutes, and a question perhaps to the CAO. It was mentioned in there about the ongoing negotiations for the Union Library. Is there any update you can give this council at this time?
I think the most appropriate update would be to simply say that from where I sit, I think the dominant issues at this time that we're working through and waiting to hear some feedback from the consultants on are the challenges around back office integration, the sort of support services. Actually, they're services that primarily fall within Ms. Quinlan's domain. So perhaps I'll defer part of the question over to her. But I would submit to you that really the focus now is on how the two municipalities, in that they provide support services to the libraries, how that would work in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Quinlan, any further comments?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, we are meeting this week with Lincoln Library and the consultants just to review the report. We did see a draft of the report, and there's a few more things that we would like to see added to the report, like a roadmap and how to get to the ultimate goal. So we are looking at bringing this to council in December, the actual report.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Stewart, I know you're the council representative, and not meaning to put you on the spot by any means. Do you any comments from yourself on this?
No, not really. It's just that I know that our library is looking forward to joining with the other library to provide better service for everyone. And it's like the CAO, Mr. Cribbs, and our treasurer have said there's just the details to be worked out so that we're hoping to be integrated for January 1st.
Oh, excellent. Good to hear that. I believe all of council is waiting for that action to happen. Thank you, everyone, for the updates on that. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if there's no other comments, we will take the vote on the consent agenda items. And again, that's save and accept the items to be discussed separately. And for this vote, we'll begin with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you, and that does carry. That brings us to our items to discuss separately. And if I may go in order of the consent agenda, that would bring us to item 8.3.4. And this is the Unflood Ontario planning report, which was lifted from Councillor Stewart. And if I may, I will just read into the record the original motion, which is be it resolved that Council receive report 2021-0190 Unflood Ontario Network for information purposes, and that Council approve and direct the Town of Pelham become a member of the Unflood Ontario Network. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we will turn to Councillor Stewart. You pulled this item?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to divide that motion into two parts. The first part would be to receive the report for information. And secondly, I would like the rest of it to be voted on separately for joining. Let me just get my notes here. At this time, there is no fee to join, but that doesn't mean it will continue to be that way in the future. They are not any accredited or formalized group. All of the information that they have is available on their website without actively becoming a member. One of the initiatives that I noted in the website is the use of permeable pavement. I'm sure this is something that I mentioned at least twice in the past as a means to let our land accept water rather than having it diverted to stormwater management ponds. I believe that our town is working towards these ends on our own without having to join an organization and probably have to have representation on that group, which would would be unpaid, which is not the issue, but then it would likely take up more staff and more councillor time to be involved in it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, is this, I believe, is a possible request?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. A request to divide is simply just that. It is a request. So I'm happy to do that and to facilitate that. With that respect, we would just use the same mover and seconder from the consent agenda, which would be Councillor Wink moving it and Councillor Stewart seconding it, and it would just be a request to divide. So unless there's other discussion or debate.
Is there any more discussion or debate on agenda item 8.3.4? Okay, not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Okay, thank you. So the first vote would be with respect to be it resolved that Council receive report 2021-0190 Unflood Ontario Network for information purposes. As there's no other debate, this will begin with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. The second portion of that resolution is and that Council approve and direct the Town of Pelham become a member of the Unflood Ontario Network. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any other discussion?
Yes. Any discussion on the second part? And I see Councillor Olson with his hand up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I look at this as an opportunity. One of the biggest issues that is seen by the people who are promoting solutions to climate change and green solutions has been education, and I'm sure you've seen the several items on television from Unflood Ontario, and they're backed by some large organizations, reputable organizations in our community, including the Niagara Community Foundation, which was one of the founding members. So this is an organization that supports charities and nonprofits in every one of our municipalities. So this is a movement of some substance. And it's not going to be something that dies out over the years. It's going to be something that's lasting. And it gives us the opportunity to become part of it and see how it works. And then if we don't like what we get for the money, we just don't vote the money. So I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments before we call the vote? I would just like to say that I would also support the motion to join, just for the information that town staff can get from this organization. As Councillor Stewart says, it is on the website, but I think it's a worthy organization that this town would do well to join, and no cost involved. So I'm going to vote in favor of this. Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Seeing as this council is a limited number of not employees, but representatives, and the staff is limited as well, I'm just concerned about the staff time involved with becoming part of one of these organizations. And seeing that we can obtain all the information on the website, at this point, I'll be voting no.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions before we call the vote? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So this is for the second paragraph to become members, and this vote will begin with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That does carry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to our next item on the agenda, which was lifted, and that is the update report from the Pelham Street North Speed and Traffic Calming Point Assessment results. And this was lifted by Councillor Wink. And just for the record, I will read the original motion into the record, which is, be it resolved that Council receive report 2021-0185 Pelham Street North Traffic Calming Update for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and we will turn to Councillor Wink for your comments on this item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a long stretch of road that doesn't have any interruption whatsoever. There's no pedestrian crossings from until you get to Pelham Street and Highway 20. It also lends to some speeding on this road. The report lists some alternatives, and I would suggest that council direct staff to install an always stop control intersection at Pelham Street and Hurricane Road. And also because this would allow for a pedestrian crossing on Pelham Street North, which currently does not exist.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And I believe he needs a seconder on that, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do have Councillor Wink as the mover for this amendment, and we would be looking for a seconder.
And I see Councillor Olson. Are you seconding the motion?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have that noted down that the motion be amended to include and that council directs staff to install an all-way stop control at the intersection of Pelham Street and Hurricane and to allow for a pedestrian crossing. Is there any discussion?
Any discussion on this motion? Not seeing any right now. I know I would like to comment that I agree wholeheartedly with the councillor. I believe a stop sign would be beneficial in slowing the traffic. I know it's not the Director of Public Works would tell us that that's not the primary reason a four-way stop is installed, but council instructed staff to put a four-way stop on Hay Street. I travel Hay Street almost every day, and that stop sign definitely does make it safer for the people coming out of Brewerton Road onto Haste, and I believe it does slow the traffic down as was intended. So I will be supporting this motion for Pelham Street North. Any other comments on this motion? Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to our Manager of Public Works. Do you have any information as to what other options were considered before declining to put in a four-way stop?
Director of Public Works, Mr. Mark?
Mr. Mayor, so if I understand the councillor correctly, you're looking at what other alternatives could be put in place in lieu of a three-way stop. Is that the question?
Yes, that's correct.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So to answer that, we recently reconstructed this section of roadway. As part of that process, we looked at some engineering solutions that would help to reduce speeds and calm traffic. Pelham Street North is considered a collector road, and it also serves as one of the only north-south arterial roadways that run through the town from north to south. So it does see a lot of traffic. What we've experienced is that traffic coming in from rural areas into the urban areas are usually traveling at higher speeds, and that's kind of what this report indicates as well. So when we reconstructed the road, we looked at ways that we could try to reduce speeds using curb bump outs to narrow the roads at certain areas leading up to intersections to try to slow traffic. So those were completed as part of the reconstruction of the roadway. Since that time, staff have also installed speed indicator signs on that section of roadway to try to reduce the traffic speeds. Through two studies that we've completed over the past 2 years, we found that the speeding isn't really critical. There are some higher speeds, but in general, they are fairly typical of a collector type road like Pelham Street North is. The alternative that we put forward, we did complete two traffic warrant intersection warrants at Hurricane and Pelham, as well as at Short Hills and Pelham. Both those warrants failed, so they didn't pass the test. They weren't warranted. However, staff, as one of the alternatives that are presented in this report, feel that it is a long stretch of road. There are a number of pedestrians that use that roadway. At the intersection of Hurricane and Pelham, there is a community mailbox as well as entrance to the Nature Conservatory Park. And we felt that as an alternative, which ultimately ends up in reducing speeds at that location, would also be benefit to pedestrians using the sidewalks to get across Pelham Street at that point. So that was the alternative that was presented to council.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, debate on Councillor Wink's motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So this is for the amendment, and this vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
No.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
And that carries. That does bring you to the main motion as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any other further debate.
Any other further debate on the main motion itself? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I'll use the same mover and seconder. So that's Councillor Wink and Councillor Olson. And this vote will begin with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
No.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. That brings you to the last item that was lifted, and this is the City of Welland resolution regarding the Niagara Region Transit. This was lifted by Councillor Hildebrandt, and for the record, I'll just read the original motion into the record, which is, be it resolved that Council receive correspondence from the City of Welland regarding Niagara Region Transit for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Hildebrand, you lifted this item for your comments, please.
Yes. I'd like the motion to be amended to include, and that the council for the corporation of the town of Pelham endorse and support the resolution from the City of Welland regarding Niagara Regional Transit, and that the town clerk is hereby directed to circulate a copy of the resolution to the NRT and all area municipalities.
Okay, and any comments on that amendment?
Yes, it basically comes down to communication from NRT to local municipalities. Like Welland, I haven't heard any news back with regards to the basic requests that we've made with regards to parking of vehicles at the MCC as a starting point. And residents and also as well as some other outstanding issues. And then the other related issue I did on Thursday, check my app, and the service is still 35-minute minimum wait for me to get a ride. I firmly believe if they'd consider parking at least a couple of vehicles at the MCC or related around our area, that waiting time would come nearer to our average. And I'm still not sure. I have not received any further information from them, and I'm not sure when they're coming to council and to talk to us.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Hildebrand. Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I will continue to rely on the experience reports of the riders who are reporting a 95% satisfaction rate and a 16-minute wait time. I think that's quite satisfactory, and I'll vote no.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on the amendment? Mr. CAO, have any comments from the administration side?
Well, this is procedurally awkward, but I do have a piece that's relevant to what you're discussing and Councillor Hildebrandt's commentary, which is to say that Ms. Van Ravensway and I have been in contact with NRT staff. The challenge fundamentally is that for their own operational efficiency, they want to park all of the vehicles in the same location. It has to do with drivers and scheduling and who shows up and who gets which shifts or tasks for the day. At any rate, it would probably be beneficial for us to understand whether, of course, if the fleet is parked at the MCC, that takes up parking spaces, which we hear frequently are at a premium. So if this council had a preference, which is to say that the NRT fleet was based at the MCC, but that would be, I think, a dozen vans, if I'm not mistaken. I suspect it is possible for us to arrange that. However, that's also a dozen parking spaces. What we don't seem to be capable of negotiating is that 2, 3, or 4 are parked at the MCC. So with that piece of knowledge and information, I don't know if that changes how any of you might want to change the motion or otherwise. But if we had clear indication from a majority of council as to their preference on that, then I'm sure that Ms. Van Ravensway and I could effectively negotiate an outcome one way or the other. So with that, I'll hit mute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, parking at the MCC is a premium. A lot of times it isn't, but I drive down Rice Road all the time when I'm heading east to get out of town. So that's basically my exit route from the town heading towards St. Catharines or the 406. And so I see the parking at the MCC, even during the daytime, is surprisingly full. So obviously, I would never vote for the complete NRT fleet to be parked in our parking lot. So that if they're saying they can't divide the fleet up, which I'm having a hard time understanding, I don't know what else to say.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm also sharing your questions as to why the fleet can't be broken up, even if it's on a rotating basis. But if that's the rule we are getting, I guess that's the rule we have to live with. Before we go any further on this amendment, the clerk has informed me that we need a seconder for this amendment to be discussed any further. So is there a seconder for Councillor Hildebrand's amendment? That we have to get that done. Okay, and I see Councillor Stewart, I take it you are going to second the amendment?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you. Then we can continue the discussion then. And any other questions or comments on the amendment? Councillor Wink.
Yeah, so if I read the resolution from the City of Welland, the resolution has nothing to do with ridership or just commitment on how long it takes to get a ride or whatever. So I think this, if we accept this resolution as said, we're adding to the resolution other things, and I'm not sure if that's appropriate at this time.
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrandt is simply to support and endorse, which certainly Council can do. If Council wishes, they could also add a further line after asking the Town Clerk to direct, indicating and that the Town of Pelham Council directs staff to provide further correspondence to the Niagara region, indicating I think that it's is it the location of the vans that you're looking for, Councillor Hildebrandt?
I wasn't adding that to the motion. That was just comments with regards to the NRT communication.
Right. So
my motion was very clear. It was basically just to support the endorsement by the endorse and support the resolution of the City of Welland regarding the NRT.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hildebrandt. So to answer Councillor Wink's question, at this point in time, it's not to add anything further. It's just simply a support and endorse.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments before we call the vote on the amendment? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So this is for the amendment, and I'll start with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to the motion as amended.
And any discussion on the motion as amended? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I'll use the same mover and seconder, being Councillor Hildebrandt and Councillor Stewart. And this vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is 10.2.1. And that is with respect to the Pelham Year of the Garden 2022 Options Report. And I have a motion put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0186 Pelham Year of the Garden 2022 Options for information, and that Council authorize and direct staff to proceed with options blank. Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff have left the option that Council wishes to move forward with blank, as there is about 7 options in the report. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. On item number 10.2.1, Year of the Garden, is there discussions, questions, comments on the staff report? Okay, not seeing any. I'll open the discussion then perhaps is on the, and I don't have it in front of me, but the one option of spearheading a rain barrel campaign for the town. Obviously, we'll have to discuss this also during the budgetary discussions. But I know in Vic Van Raven's way, the director of RCW perhaps can comment on this. I know that we did do that before. It was actually done on a region-wide basis. I actually have talked to the region about this a couple of months ago to see why the program was halted region-wide. St. Catharines still does it. And I have contacted outside the Niagara region, the city of Guelph does it and has been doing it for the last 5 or 6 years at least. And they presently have 9,600 rain barrels out among the residents. And I do know that Trout Unlimited would also be behind this initiative, because any water that ends up in a rain barrel doesn't end up in a stormwater management pond. And although one barrel doesn't mean much, 1,000 is indeed a little bit, and 10,000 is even more. So I know that the big green item right now is to keep as much water out of the stormwater management ponds as we can, and Guelph certainly has had success. And I know that City of St. Catharines, I'm not aware of how many barrels they still sell, but I know that whatever they order, they're sold out in 1 day, 1 week. They don't have any left over, so it's still a very well-received program in St. Catharines. And I'm sure that with all the building we have in Pelham, that and especially we have, I believe, an environmentally conscious population in the town. I can't help but think that the rain barrel initiative wouldn't be well received. Any other comments at this time on the staff report considering the Year of the Garden? I see Councillor Stewart with her hand.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a minor concern with number 7, to not proceed with the garden bed competition. And the phrase unfair advantage is in there a couple of times. And, you know, I can understand there being an unfair advantage to a company like DeCourts, for example, doing a garden bed and having them in competition with the North Pelham Boy Scouts. That certainly would be an unfair advantage. I think you'll all agree to that. You know, they do have the materials, everything they need to do everything. But it could be easily structured in such a way so that there's different levels for you've got, you know, school classes and Boy Scout troops and, you know, in various categories for garden clubs and, you know, professionals. So I think that was quite weighted against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor. Any other comments, suggestions? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also on the rain barrel campaign trail. I participated previously on the rain barrel thing, and at AMO, that's one of the big things they also promote. And I think it's a great green initiative, and it does keep water out of the stormwater ponds. And I'm a great proponent of trying to keep water out of the stormwater management ponds, because I think that's the greatest solution to our stormwater management pond problem, keeping the water away from there. So yeah, I'm on board with yours voting for the rain barrel campaign.
Excellent. Thank you for those comments, Councillor. Any other comments? I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking about the vegetable gardens in the parks, and the pollinator beds, because they're closely linked. Typically, in these types of projects, the pollinator beds are very close to the community gardens. And I'm totally in support of both of them, because I think as long as we use native plants and that type of thing, if we can find the space in our parks, this gives people a great opportunity, especially the folks that are living in condos and things who don't typically get out in the yard. The potential partnership with the Pelham Garden Club, I think, is probably a great thing. I have a note from our greenhouse growers supporting joining the Communities in Bloom, because they feel that we have a unique agricultural situation in Pelham, given our climate and our soils. And there are many things that can't be grown anywhere else, and we have an extremely successful landscape and greenhouse industry, well established in the community, and this supports them. And they've said that they would support. I believe they would support the Year of the Garden. I agree with what Councillor Stewart says about breaking this down so that we get the money towards the youth and the young people in the community by going through the schools and things. And one of the things that I see in the report that is the $750 amount for a pollinator garden, and that I think there's grants available for $15,000-$20,000, and I think we have a good chance of getting some of those. So if we could direct the grant money towards the schools and the scouts, and that's where climate change remedies are going to start, is with the young people, not so much with people like me who are on the other side of the hill. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this, of course, and voting to see that this comes through. And I hope our role can be as a conductor of a big orchestra, because we've got all these successful organizations that function very well on their own, and somehow we have to bring them together to make this happen. And I think it could be really something for the community.
Okay,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for those comments. Before I go to any other councillors, I just want to go to staff, if I could. And first, Ryan, Mr. Ryan Cook, manager, I wonder if, I believe you were hired by the town, or in the employment of the town, when we were running the gardens before, community gardens. How was that? Correct me if I'm wrong, first of all, and if that is true, any comments you have about how we ran them or how they were received when we did run them before? Mr. Cook?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Are you speaking about the community vegetable gardens?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we did set up a plot for those at the old arena. Sort of, it would have been in front of where the portables were set up. We installed a water service for them. We had them all ready to go. There wasn't any community desire at the time, and they never really went anywhere at all. So we did have a location for them. I don't know that it was advertised very well or at all. It was a project of a past employee. It didn't seem to pan out. Unfortunately, it didn't.
So if we were to include that, obviously we would want to reach out to the public this time around and make sure that there was commitment or desire for it before putting any staff time towards that one initiative. Would you agree on that, Mr. Cook?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would. It would be. I think it would be beneficial to actually get something started up and running, just to show what can be done. I think that's probably one of the failings of the last time, is we didn't actually get it up and running at all. And I think if we do a small project and show what can be done, I think we can probably be more successful.
Excellent. And if we do run short of help, you will be out there with a hoe?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, my parents had a big garden. I know how to weed and pretty good.
Okay, thank you. And again, one last staff member, Ms. Van Ravensway, I believe you were in the town's employ when the Rain Barrel campaign was running in the town. I wonder if you have any thoughts about that campaign or the initiative and how it was received, and do you have any recollections as to why it was stopped?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We ran the Rain Barrel program, I believe, 3 or 4 years in a row. The way the program runs is you purchase a trailer load of rain barrels, which is about just less than 400 rain barrels, which is too much for a community like ours. So we shared the load with another municipality. I believe it was Welland most of the time. And, the first couple of years, it was very successful, but after a while, everyone has their rain barrels. And at that point in time, we were not expanding and growing like we are now. So, it was time to take a break at that time. And also we received funding from the region to provide the rain barrels at a lower cost. Now, looking at the program, I think it is a good time to initiate it again, as we are growing and many new faces in town. And there may be possibilities of a grant. I know actually on Flood Ontario, I've seen the commercials on TV with regard to getting your rain barrels. So I'm sure that they could be a funding source as well. But staff would have to investigate it, and it would need to be included in the budget.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. And now let's go back to council. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. If we do decide to go ahead with the rain barrel program, which I think is a valuable initiative, one part of the marketing strategy we could use for it is to inform homeowners of the savings they will have on their wastewater bill. Because if you decide to water your flower gardens and your vegetable garden with the rainwater, instead of hooking up to the town water for it, it will lessen the impact on your bill, and it will also lessen the load on the water treatment plants and the wastewater treatment plants.
Yeah, exactly, Councillor. That would be an excellent idea and an excellent avenue to pursue. Any time anybody can put a couple of bucks in their pockets, it usually helps a program succeed, for sure. Councillor Wink, did I see your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just piggybacking on point 7 on what Councillor Stewart was saying, and I like the idea of creating a competition for the youth in our community, be it Boy Scouts or schools or whatever. The only concern I have with that is Boy Scouts and the schools do not operate in the months of July and August. So who's going to be picking up and taking care of the beds in the summer months?
A good question. I know that one thing, one reason the competition is going to be, if we do indeed run a competition, it is, of course, the town is, outside workers are unionized, and that will have to be something that will be discussed with the workers and their union, I would think. Mr. CAO, any comments on that?
Council, this report was written to try to canvass, not in huge depth, but with enough detail to give a flavor, and then to sort of from that to draw out your preferences, and then hopefully to pick. Well, you could pick multiple, of course. There's the sky is the limit. But option 7, to be clear, your advisory committee recommends against. Those volunteers that spent 3 years on that topic are recommending against option 7, and your staff recommend against option 7. So there are 7 options. 6 of them we're either neutral on or endorse. The 7th we do not. If there's a strong desire for competition, then I submit to you that there's a provincial gardening competition as one of those options. And that's a sort of positive way for everyone to be on the same team to compete against other communities. So that's the Communities in Bloom option. So if competition is the key, then may I submit to you that we channel our efforts towards Communities in Bloom, which is a very well-recognized event, and the town of Pelham has prior history with. So to reiterate, for multiple reasons, we do not endorse option 7. That's both your advisory committee and your staff.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. CAO. Any other questions or comments? I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO. So my reading of the Communities in Bloom, there would be categories, and I think, we'd be up against things like, well, I'm not going to say we're in the same category as Niagara Parks Commission because of what they have there. They have like 1,300 acres or something that they can create gardens in. We don't have anything like that, but there are certain, I guess there's certain criteria for entering this, and I would much prefer to enter it as a group, as a town, with in competition or whatever you want to call it with other communities, rather than individuals within the community participating as competitors. So is that how that works? Is there different categories?
I think Ms. Van Ravensway has the most experience with Communities in Bloom of anyone on staff. So I'll defer that piece to her. I can just say that I've seen other communities and have lived in other communities that have participated, and people really do get into, like, it is a nice way to bring people together. And finally, the Pelham Garden Club, I might be massacring its acronym there, but they do a competition of sorts already. And so one of the reasons we're advising against is we're trying to do other things that augment gardening as opposed to duplicate something already offered in the community.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, and I'll turn to Ms. Van Ravensway. Any further information on the Community in Bloom competition?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We participated in the Communities in Bloom competition, I believe, 2 or 3 years, not back to back. It's a fair amount of work, although what it is, you are judged against municipalities your own size. And it's not just gardens, it's everything. It's your environmental, your recycling, your garbage, your turf management. It's a wide base of, and your gardens, obviously. And at the end of it, what you get is a report card, which is really beneficial. You also win blooms, right? That's the whole idea, to win the competition. But you have professionals coming in and judging your community, and it's judged on all aspects. And you get a report card, and it's in detail how you can improve, what you should be working on, and so forth. And in that way, it is very beneficial, and you can use the results to, plan out your future capital projects or, operating procedures, where you can improve and so forth. So at the time that we participated, we had a very, a great Communities in Bloom committee that got involved in every aspect. and you hosted the judges for 2 days in your community, and you did a tour of the community. You know, it also pertains to your heritage, conservation. It's an excellent program, but you also have to have the resources to be able to participate in it.
Thank you for that. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Ms. Van Ravensberry. I believe the discussion started with you, Councillor Olson. Any final comments on that?
Would it be appropriate, Mr. Mayor, to ask for a staff report on this? Because if it's an investment, staff investment of time and money, I think we could consider that separately if that was appropriate.
Well, first of all, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, I would think that if we wanted to a staff report, then we would have to, I don't know why we wouldn't just put it in and pick it as one of the recommendations. I'll turn to the clerk. Can we just, if we don't pick it as a recommendation, can we still ask for a staff report on it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're correct in the fact that staff right now are asking for you to pick one or several options of what you're looking for. So if you would like to pick the communities in bloom as an option, you certainly can do that. I'm not sure that you really want, or if council wishes they could, certainly refer the whole report back to staff to further investigate what type of resources we would need for all of these options or some of these options. I'm not sure if you'd like to do that, or perhaps the CAO wants to hear your options and then provide council an update report later when he's determined what resources we do need and which ones we're going forward with. I'm not sure if the CAO has further comment.
I will turn to the CAO. Let me go to this Mr. CAO first. Obviously, this report, a lot of it's going to be tied in to the budgetary process that we're going to be starting very soon. So we don't really have a lot of time to go down certain avenues unless we're going to explore, unless we're going to choose that avenue. Mr. CAO?
Your Worship, this report wasn't meant to be determinative. It was really meant to facilitate a good discussion, which I feel it has, and then for you to tell us that you'd like more information on 3, 4, and 5, 1, 2, and 6, whatever your answers are. We'd be pleased to, we can do either or both, bring back a report that just focuses on 2 or 3 options and sort of lays them out a little more fully. We can also, when we know what those are, there's a section of the budget binder, which are available to you today, or very late Friday, I suppose they were. At any rate, budget's now out and printed, but it's not difficult to add. There's a section you'll see sort of new this year that are items that we know are, that council's discussed, but didn't fit squarely within the staff component of the budget. So when we can take the costings and add those in, and then you can consider those they would all be during the operating budget. None of them are really capital. So that's in January. So we'd have enough time to at least provide you with the proper numbers for whichever options you were interested in, particularly if we focus on just a few of them.
Okay, thank you.
So both are possible. You have complete control over how we proceed here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CEO. I'll return to Councillor Olson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, through you. I apologize. I misunderstood what was happening here and about the communities in bloom, so I would withdraw that suggestion. It's just redundant what I asked for.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? And I'll return to the clerk as to how we should choose the options that we want to go further on. Should you, do you want to read the list and we'll vote on them individually, or does council have an idea? Mr. CAO is nodding that he thinks that would be an appropriate way of doing it. We will start at the top of the list, and we will vote as we on each individual item, and ones who get the most votes will be the ones who proceed.
We're getting that terrible feedback from the mayor's mic again.
Oh, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
sorry.
how about now?
Oh,
Is this better?
That's good.
Okay.
I just assure SLT and members of council that Mike G, our IT manager, is aware of, and he is working with our vendor to correct that. So we do apologize for those involved in the meeting and viewing from home. But if that is what council wishes and they would like to do an amendment to vote on each one of these individually, we can do that. Or a member of council can bring an amendment to include options 1, 4, and 3, whatever they want to do. So whatever council wishes to do.
Okay. Any other ideas other than the one suggested by the Mr. CAO? We'll just go down the list. And then if one, if a council has a preference on one that doesn't get chosen, I guess we could still ask for a staff report on that one. But let's, we've got lots of choices. So let's see if we can't narrow it down, whether it be 3, 4, 5, whatever. Any other discussion on this before we go down the list? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I'm going to use the same mover and seconder. So that would be Councillor Wink as the mover and Councillor Olson as the seconder for all of these individual votes. So the first item that we would be voting on then is the establishment of vegetable garden plots in town parks. Is there any discussion?
Any discussion on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
No.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that one is defeated. That brings you to number 2, and this is the pollinator gardens. Any discussion?
Any discussion on item 2, pollinator gardens? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that one does carry. That brings us to option number 3, which is the potential partnership with Pelham Cares. To you, Mr. Mayor, for debate.
Any debate on this item? Partnership with Pelham Cares. Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. That brings us to item number 4, which is the potential partnership with the Pelham Garden Club. Any debate?
Any debate on the garden club option? Not seeing any.
This vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
No.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. That brings us to number 5, which is joining communities in bloom. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Discussion on the joining the Committee in Bloom competition. Not seeing any. Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Wink?
Yeah, I think it's a good initiative. I'm not sure if we're ready for this this particular year. I'd like to put it on the back burner and then find out in future what resources are going to be required of staff and council and what the costs would be. So I think it's a good initiative, just not this year.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Any other comments? I like the idea of a report card by an outside third party coming in and evaluating the town on all those various items that Ms. Van Ravensway pointed out. But I think I tend to agree with Councillor Wink that perhaps if we do decide we can get a better report on just how many resources would be needed to do this. So I will be voting against this initiative myself. Any other comments? Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand what both you and Councillor Wink are talking about, but it says right here, a healthy portion of the judging is based on gardens on private lands, so every property owner can participate. It's not simply a town initiative of the town competing with other towns. It's a good part of the population maintaining and beautifying their own properties that are judged as part of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for bringing out those clarification points. Thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote's going to begin with Councillor Hildebrandt.
No.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
No.
And that's defeated. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to option number 6, which is create a rain barrel campaign. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the rain barrel option? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. This brings you to number 7, which is a 2022 garden bed competition. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on the item about garden bed competitions? Not so. Councillor Wink.
So just to be clear, are we supporting the staff? If we say no, we're going against staff recommendation. If we're saying yes, we're agreeing with staff recommendation. Is that correct?
Madam Clerk, or should I turn to the CAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the resolution, or sorry, the number 7 says not to proceed with a 2022 garden bed competition. So if you vote yes, then you're voting to not proceed. If you vote no, then as you say, in a sense, it's awkward because if you vote no, then you're not really telling us to do something at all. I don't know if the CAO has any further comments on that.
We drafted that awkwardly, procedurally poorly for the right reason. But Councillor Wink has identified it correctly, as has the clerk. So if you support the staff motion, we will not proceed.
Okay.
If you vote no, we will proceed.
So yes means no.
Yes means no. All good things municipal. Clear as mud.
Okay, thank you.
Who approves these reports, really?
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. CAO. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this vote's going to begin with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that does carry. So that yes means no. And therefore, council has chosen option 2, 3, 4, and 6. So the amendment then for this motion to be amended would be that council would be receiving the report for information and that council authorize and direct staff to proceed with options 2, 3, 4, and 6. So that now we're on the main motion as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further discussion. Okay,
thank you, Madam Clerk. Upon hearing the items chosen, is there any further discussion, debate on the items, either chosen or not chosen, I suppose? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So now we're on to the main motion as amended, and this vote's going to begin with Councillor
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin,
Yes.
and that does carry. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda, which is the presentations and considerations of bylaws. And I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council for the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. One, being a bylaw to authorize the use of optical scanning vote tabulators, touch screen vote tabulators, and to allow for an alternative voting method, being a hybrid voting approach for the municipal election, specifically using a combination of in-person voting and special on-demand mail-in ballots, and to repeal or replace bylaw number 3875, 2017. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions on this bylaw 4401? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. This brings us to notices of motion, and Councillor Stewart has a notice of motion. If Councillor Stewart wishes to speak to her notice regarding parking at the MCC, this would be the time.
Okay.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. As we are all aware, there is a long-awaited parking study coming at no specific date that council is aware of. I'm not trying to jump the gun, but we are all aware of the shortfall in parking space at the Meridian Community Center. This needs to be addressed sooner rather than later to at least get some consideration in the 2022 budget for a temporary solution. A temporary solution would be some minor grading and the surfacing of pea gravel that can later be used in another project. This council has set aside land adjacent to the current parking lot. This parking is addressed in the 2023 budget, but that could depend on whether the next council goes ahead with it or red circles it for a future year. If it does go ahead in 2023, it is possible that it wouldn't be completed until late in the year, making it approximately 2 years from now. I would prefer a permanent solution in that same area by using a hard but permeable surface, as I also referenced in my comments on Unflood Ontario for the parking. And as a separate but equally important motion will be also to update our parking bylaws and making them enforceable. With so much construction going on immediately around the community center, we are going to have plans in place to control the parking in that municipal lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So we look forward to the motion at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring you to the confirming bylaw, and I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be ready for second and third time and passed, being bylaw number 4402-2021, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 15th day of November 2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on this bylaw? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. We have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for December 6, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Any discussion on adjournment? Not seeing any?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes. No. Maybe. going back to the garden club. Yes.
Yes, I've got your yes. Thank you. That is carried. It is 6:53, Mr. Mayor, and you can gavel out your meeting.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Right. Good evening.
Night.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you can stay there all evening if you like.
Maybe perhaps I will. Yes.